Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about these oaks. Everybody's nightmare, is it not? Am I independent? Am I not? Am I a contractor? Yes or no? Do I pay? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? Right. Now, in a nutshell, the interpretation notes 17 and 35, out of everything that's in place there, one of the most important things they tell us to do is you have to apply your mind. All right. Now, what does apply your mind to? You know the little questions that are posed? In terms of, do you have your own premises? How many staff members do you have? All the rest of it in there. You need to, on a yearly basis, and what I've done for you is I've effectively given you that test. Okay? This is for a personal services provider. It's now after the court case. Come now. You'll see it says here, personal service provider test. Do you find it? Ask the silly questions like, first one, please confirm the number of employees, 0 to 2, 3 to 10, and all the rest of it. Okay. Now, what you need to do in terms of that, I'm not going to go through the whole detail of that, because looking at contractors at the end of the day could take us, that's the right page there. Looking at contractors and PSPs could take us from here till 4 o'clock this afternoon if you want to go into the detail behind it. The biggest thing you need to do is apply your mind to those tests. Okay. Every supplier, now bearing in mind, every supplier that provides you with a service, irrespective if they're a company or an individual, service, not goods. So in other words, you guys are living stationary to you, so what? They can never be, because it's always a service aspect. It's that personal service. Whether that be as a contractor or whether that be under a company where you need to do it. Every service provider that you have needs to complete that test every single year. Why? Can you say from an invoice that you receive from my offices how many people I employ? Can you see whether or not 80% of my income is going to come from you? Can you see if I work under any supervision? Can you see if there's any control? Can you see that I've been at your Christmas party with everybody else making the biggest noise? Eh? Can you see that I've got a telephone extension in your company? You see what I'm getting at? So you have to get these questions completed. Why? Because normally what happens with all these service providers, you'll have a contract. And that contract's been drawn up by an attorney. How do you know that? Because it's more than 5 pages. Okay, so we charge per page. We also charge per page while reading. You know, so the more pages, the better. But anyway, that's been drawn up and been looking at from a legal perspective to show independence. And the problem is 9 times out of 10, that independence is based on labor law. Now, labor law sits over here, and the fourth schedule sits over here. Are they the same? No. Do they talk to each other? No. They are effectively 2 different acts. So you're independent from labor, but you're a deemed employee from a tax perspective. So by completing this questionnaire and getting the guy to sign it as an affidavit, you're confirming to SARS that you've applied your mind. What is the alternative? In the questionnaire, that's the first questionnaire from SARS, it says, have you performed the relevant test to determine independence or not? And if your answer is no, you're having an audit, and you know what they're going to do? They go to your creditor's ledger and they say, any person or company that's received more than 3 payments in a year, you prove to us they're independent. Otherwise, here's your estimated assessment. Do you know how difficult it is to go back 5 years to a service provider that, number one, you aren't supplying service, aren't receiving the services from anymore, and phone him up and say, how's it? I'm busy with a SARS audit. Can you tell me how many staff members you have? Do you know what response you're going to get? Adjectives? Put down. That's what happens. So you need to have this in place. It's very difficult to defend, but can be defendable at the end of the day. So the bottom line behind the contractors and PSPs at the end of the day is you have to have that test. Because the first thing SARS is going to say to you is, do you perform the test? And the answer is yes. Here we go. The person has signed it as an affidavit. So if he has lied to you, SARS, to us, as the company, SARS, you go sort him out. The fourth schedule allows for SARS to absolve you from any liability and go after that individual. Here you have an affidavit. Also, how long is that audit going to last? Not very long, because I see you already applying your mind. But you don't have the test in place, you're going to have a problem. That's the bigger picture nutshell. I'm going to run through a couple of things that I think is important that you need to go back with. We will be doing a contractor workshop sometime along the line. And as I said, it's like 4 hours of going through each little item and this, and you'll be looking worse than you are now, okay? Trust me, because it's even more boring. But the thing is, the bottom line is, please just do your test, okay? How do foreign workers fit into the equation? Easy. No foreigner can be independent. End of the picture. Klar, finished. That's what the fourth schedule says to us. Any foreigner cannot be seen as an independent contractor. Think why? Because the difference between us on the basis of residency taxation, all foreigners in the country are taxed on a source base. So in other words, if he's doing the work for you in South Africa, end of the picture, he can't be independent. Irrespective if he is in fact independent and running his own thing and doing everything else, the fact that he's a foreigner is a source-based, he cannot be independent. That's the bottom line. Okay? Even if it's disguised as a company at the end of the day. Are you a representative employer? You've got to be very careful of this. This is where you have a company in South Africa that's got a multinational structure, or maybe offshore companies, where they are sending people from that company to work in South Africa on a project on your behalf, but they are still being paid by that individual company offshore. If you are making any payments which would constitute remuneration in normal circumstances, and what would that be? Things like flights, accommodation, taxi fares, things like that. Because why? You're not going to get the overseas company to try and organize accommodation here. You're going to be doing because it's going to the project cost. You stand a very big chance of falling in under the umbrella of being a representative employer. Where SARS could then come to you and say, excuse me, I want PAYE not only on the little things that you've paid in terms of accommodation and that, I want on his full earnings. Because you are the representative employer. So from a source perspective, that person is taxable in South Africa. We had a case like this. It hasn't, put it this way. It started off, same argument with a multinational, and all the company in South Africa paid was accommodation, car hire, and flights. That's all they paid. Now, I won't go into the whole technical detail, we've done that before, but effectively those three items, because there are 7 schedule benefits or perceived benefits at the end of the day, flights from home up and down aren't taxable anyway. It's like you fly to Cape Town for business and you come back, it's not taxable, it's part of your work. Accommodation, if it's below the brackets, once again, paragraph 9.7 of the 7 schedule says, if you're away from your normal place of residence for more than one night, those amounts do not constitute accommodation, correct? Same aspect. So if you go to fly to Cape Town and you stay over there, are you being taxed on your hotel? No, because you're away from your normal place. But before going into all that detail and the whole merit, SARS raised a letter of findings for 976 million bucks capital for this company on the basis they said you're a representative employer, so all the earnings for those individuals that are working on a project, not for your company but working on a project, you are now deemed as a representative employer. We want PAYE on every earning that they had, irrespective of how long they've been here, for the duration of the time they've been here. We went through 6 months of fighting. SARS backed off and said they'll come back to us. They withdrew their letter of findings, and we haven't heard anything from it since. But they're building up because this is now becoming internationally a big problem. Because they're saying normal circumstances before you are taxable in this country or required to register. You all know about the VAT that's already been done now. Electronic Services VAT registration. They are now going to be looking at the PAYE aspect because all the countries in the world say that before you have to register for the relevant taxes, you as a company need to have a PE, a permanent establishment within South Africa. They are now looking at, if you look at the OECD guidelines and specifically Indian legislation, they're saying if you have people from your company working in the country, that can constitute a permanent establishment. Okay, so that's something off the page totally, and all of you are looking at me shocked, but yeah, that's something off the page. But it is a real concentration. If you do have this representative employer thing, please, you need to start looking at it a little more detail and making sure you're not falling within that little catch of being a representative employer. If you want, I will email you the doc with obviously no company details, but just the basis of what that argument was with SARS, okay? Right, and then what do we do with VAT? I'll come to that just now. But this is what you need to know. The golden rule. Your contract. This is the simplistic aspect, whether it's a personal service provider or an independent individual. This is the most important criteria. Okay? Number one, your contractual arrangement. There has to be a contractual arrangement. When you want to build your little LARPer or your jacuzzi or something at home, and what do you get? You get a quote specifying what needs to be done, 50% deposit, done deal, will be finished in 5 days, which turns out to be 5 months. You know the process, we've all been through that, okay? Now, that's the same principle as what you need to follow with anybody that you are employing for their services. When I say employing, hiring their services. You want me to give you an opinion. You're going to say to me, Steve, I need an opinion on our traveling policy. Fine. All right, it's going to cost you X, depending on the hours, but more or less that. Perfect. You agree? Yes, done. What do I do for you? I just deliver the deliverable. I'm not at your beck and call all day long because you think I'm doing you one opinion, I can do whatever else is needed. If I am watching the rugby on Friday, then I'm watching rugby on Friday. There's no secret about it, but you can't force me to. You can't come out with a sick note and say, listen, excuse me, I was watching. But anyway, point being is you need an agreement. Number one, near conclusive. That's one of the first tests. Payment with reference to result. There has to be a result. If there's no result, you are a deemed employee. How many of you are employees in a company? If you do absolutely nothing for October, will you still be paid at the end of October? You might not get paid in November because they're going to fire you, but you will still get paid, okay? That's what I'm meaning there. There has to be a result. If I do not give you that traveling allowance opinion, what are you going to pay me for? Right? That's where the problem comes in with things like retainers. You pay a 20 grand retainer every month, but you never get an invoice to say what has been done. That is more indicative of an employee at the end of the day. So there must be payment with reference to results. And what I don't want to see on that invoice is 40 hours at times 4 weeks. Done. What did I do? That's like an employee getting a pay slip. You have to specify, done this, done that, done this, done that, partial work on this. What is it per agreement? Even if the thing takes 6 months to do, and you're working on a project, you're still busy with phase 1, phase 2, whatever. You need more detail, okay? Otherwise, there's no reference to result. The biggest thing I find with all the contract is you try and bind the people in. While you're working for me, you work for nobody else. That's you as a salaried employee. You must be able to have a multiple concurrent client base. Even though it might be impossible, impractical, based on the specific project that you're busy with this company to have other clients during that period, that's immaterial. But you cannot restrict me from having other clients, because then I'm an employee. Okay? Risk, profit and loss. I quoted you. If I'm underquoted, my problem. If I deliver you an opinion on subsistence allowances where I should have given it to you on traveling allowances, whose fault is it? Mine. You don't have to pay me. Whereas if you do nothing for October, you're getting paid your salary. You understand we're beginning at there? Okay. So those three are very important and must be excluded, and mention mustn't be made in the contract to say that. From a persuasive perspective, own sequence of work. Obviously. As I said, I'm watching rugby on Friday. I am. If I want to work on Saturday, then it's my problem. As long as you get what you want. You don't care when I do it, as long as you get the deliverable. Own productive time, once again, very similar in that aspect. Okay. This is where I have a problem with those IT independent contractors that hide in your basement. They're independent, but they're on your premises 24/7, but they're independent. Do yourself a favor when you get back to the office. You take your telephone list with all your extensions and your email addresses that are active from, so you go to a reception and say, give me all your telephone lists, all the extension numbers, go to the IT side, ask them for a listing of all the email addresses you currently have, take those two and then go to payroll and see how many people are on the payroll system. And those that are not on the payroll system on those two lists are your wannabe independent contractors. Because if I'm independent, why have I got an extension in your office? And if I'm independent, why do I have your email address? And it's as easy as verification. Simple half-an-hour job. But anyway, duration of contract must be limited. I could work for you for 24 months in a row on different things, but every time I need a new instruction. I've finished the traveling allowance, now I'm busy with subsistence allowances, now I'm finished with that, now I'm busy with that. There has to be a limitation. How many times do I find that we have an individual performing services for your company, and we've got this whole major agreement drawn up beautifully, which meets every requirement, 12 months passes and we've got this one little addendum. Okay, we're now paying you an extra amount per hour. What is it? That's your salary increase. Okay? There has to be limitation in that aspect. Another thing, no position in a hierarchy. How can you be independent contractor and be the director of the company? Right? No position. You cannot have people that are employees reporting to you if you're an independent contractor. Okay? Own business premises. Doesn't matter if it's your house. You must have your own business premises where you are effectively, where your office is, that you're performing services. Not entitled to employee benefits. That includes the Christmas lunches and the incentive trips and all the rest of it. I mean, how many times, you can walk past your canteen and you've got the photo of last year's Christmas party, and who's the person dancing on the table making the biggest noise? The independent contractor, Or you've got his own coffee mug, greatest golfer or whatever in the thing. That's the kind of thing you need to avoid in that aspect. If you invite other suppliers to your function, by all means. But if you're inviting one person and with the extension number and the email address, well, guys, substance over form. Overheads built into contract price. I don't come to your company and say, okay, fine, I'm going to charge you X amount per hour for doing this opinion, but then I'm going to use 1 cartridge ink, so I need that, please, and I need... Those things are built in. You're getting an hourly rate. Whether I have to travel up and down or whatever, those things should be taken care of. So that simplistically is what you need to use as a mirror image when you're reading a contract. If you have things that fall within there, you're going to have a major issue with SARS. But first thing, if you do not do the test, that's your biggest problem that you have. Is there questions on this? I've gone through it quickly, but you're getting the idea of what you need to look at. If you don't do the test, guys, and bearing in mind, will your suppliers have a problem filling in tests? No. Every time I get to a new company, first thing they want is, we all know that, BE certificate. Second thing is they now want original confirmation of your banking details. Okay, now we give that. Now the latest one is I want original certificate of your VAT registration. Okay, so you give that. You know this already, so if you're going to get another piece of paper saying, please complete this because you're a service provider, we will do it because if we don't do it, you're not going to pay me. But once you've paid me and you tell me to fill that in, forget it. I'm not going to do it. See, so it needs to go through procurement and get it done up front. And if you don't have it, then you've got a problem. Promise you. And then you need to phone me because we can make money again. I'll take 10% of what I save you. We did have one of those, that's why I'm joking. We had 36 million bucks owed. We settled in 3 months for 1.2 with SARS. And we took 10%. But at that stage I was just a worker. It wasn't my own company, so the rest of the guys got it. But anyway, no, as I said, it's very important that I'm trying to emphasize the amount of money that can be involved. Because you go through your creditor's ledger and look at every 3 months, anybody who's been paid more than 3 months, take that and times that by your 28%. Add on penalties and interest and all the rest. It's massive. Okay. Right, now I asked... Yes.